boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Dillian versus Moses Itauma is a London fight. It's a London fight in Riyadh. So I was shocked when Steve Kim told us that they're having to pay for that across the pond. It should be just extreme circumstances where they have to pay for fights in our time zone and vice versa. You know, when it's 4 or 5 a.m. UK time, a lot of them cars they shouldn't be charging me for. They really shouldn't be. This isn't for a European title. Dillian isn't ranked in none of the sanctioning bodies. Moses is ranked generously in all the sanctioning bodies. Some would argue, should he be? Well, I believe Dempsey McKean was ranked when Moses knocked him out spectacularly. Now look, like I say, it's a London thing, yeah? Like, I've been interviewing Dillian before he fought Anthony Joshua. I've had interviews with Dillian. I've been watching Dillian before he blew up, when he was on KO TV on Channel 4. There's no way I expected they'd be charging you guys across the pond for this. I wasn't expecting that. Looks like Turkey's trying to collect as much pay-per-view money before he calls time on it. When did he say? November? Is that after we pay for Yard versus Beterbiev or before? There is a world title on the undercard. Nick Bull takes on undefeated world-ranked Sam Goodman. You've got 2 world-ranked super featherweights, Raymond Ford against Abraham Nova. It's a pretty good matchup. Filip Hrgovic versus David Adelaide. That's not a bad matchup, and that's not a bad card. You know, you've got a world champion, quite a few world-ranked fighters on the card, so they've got to cover the purses somehow, and they're asking us to foot the bill. It is what it is. It's not a bad card. I pay for most of the pay-per-views, UK and USA. Dillian, he's done a lot of media recently. Moses Itauma not so much. I think that just reflects Dillian as a more outgoing, outspoken personality. Moses, man of few words, who likes to do his talking in the ring. Dillian went on a scathing response to Derek Chisora, who phoned him up asking, why are you taking this fight? This kid's gonna murk you. Dillian let Derek know, why are you phoning me? You're not my friend. Don't forget, I nearly took your soul in that ring. He said a lot more, of which I shall not repeat. People have been commenting Dillian's face looks chiseled, and this training footage where he's hitting the bag led to a lot of people saying he looks in great shape, and the best shape they've seen him in recent years. I'll wait until the weigh-in, until I see him in the ring before commenting in how aesthetically impressive he looks, because these things are often deceiving. Now, I've always liked the matchup from the jump. I've been consistent. A lot of people haven't, but the interest for this fight has picked up. Is it too soon for Moses? Is Dillian in shape? Is there one good fight left in Dillian? Moses Itauma is big news in British boxing media right now. Can he be the next big thing in the heavyweight division? People are expecting another big hitting, destructive performance. Can he deliver? Moses headlining a pay-per-view with his scantily clad resume and being pushed by Turkey and Frank Warren ahead of Joseph Parker to challenge Alexander Usyk for the title has put him under more scrutiny than an average prospect his age. If he doesn't deliver against Dillian, the backlash, the response is going to be merciless. Make no mistake about that.
Is there a danger, Frank, that there's too much hype being built around this kid at this moment in time?
You know, Moses is very deadpan in terms of facial expressions. Doesn't give much away. But is he feeling the pressure a little? Not necessarily fighting Dillian, but all the expectation that people have for him. I heard Simon Jordan talking about Dillian was very timid in the build-up for the Tyson Fury fight. It looks like we're getting at least some of the old Dillian back. He looks like he wants all the smoke. I'm looking forward to the press conferences. 17-year age gap. How much is that going to be a factor? Dillian's 37, Moses is 20. Looking at it realistically, inactive Dillian looked very unimpressive against Tete, who was subsequently knocked out in a round by Fraser Clark. I expect some resistance from Dillian. I'm not going to give it a round or stoppage or points or nothing, but Moses is the expected winner in my eyes and most people's eyes. Now, the 2 questions I can't answer, but will have answered once they fight, is can Dillian hurt Moses? Because I have a feeling Moses will be able to walk Dillian onto some shit and hurt Dillian due to the advantages in speed, foot speed, and hand speed that Moses has. But we'll see how it turns out. The fight has the potential to be the toughest that Moses has been in. Who you got winning? And are you going to pay for it?
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Back in the day, there were more trilogies and rubber matches than what we get today. Graziano, Tony Zell, Ali versus Norton and Frazier, Riddick Bowe versus Holyfield in the 90s. But even back then, they would space them out a little more. But you know, boxing in 2025 when champions and contenders fight twice a year, are you going to tell me that Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol are going to fight 3 times on the bounce? Was very unlikely. It's a shame, because I was really looking forward to it. Were both of them requesting that they have the rubber match go ahead with Russian backers financing it? Well, whatever went down, that didn't happen. I knew it was on a downhill slope since then, and perhaps Turkey's washed his hands of it. Some people are accusing Bivol of ducking the fight. Perhaps he is, perhaps he ain't. I don't think Bivol's afraid of Beterbiev. I don't think he's afraid of any 175-pounder. Perhaps they'll revisit the third fight in 2026. Although I did hear that Beterbiev could be fighting David Benavidez, or let's just say the winner out of David Benavidez and Anthony Yarde. In the meantime, Beterbiev returns to the ring. His fight with Nickerson is also going to be added to this November the 22nd card. The amount of fights I've heard will take place on that card is ridiculous. How are they going to fit all the fights on? In hindsight, Bivol gave up his belt for nothing, because we're not getting a rubber match. If he doesn't have anything mandated or scheduled, why isn't Eddie making Bivol versus Callum Smith in-house? If Callum hasn't signed anything definitive for the David Morrell fight, cancel and just make the Bivol fight. Even if it means Callum has to give up his WBO strap, the interim strap, do it.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
November the 15th, they're running it back at White Hart Lane, Tottenham Stadium if you like. Last time out, Eubank Jr. was fined 100k in pound notes for smacking Conor with the egg. Another 350k pound notes for missing the weight fractionally. Then they hit him up for another 20k for the sauna suit video where he was trying to cut weight. It's believed that the weight terms will remain the same. So the weight stays at 160 with a rehydration clause, 10 pounds. Can Conor make the adjustments? Being the younger man, Conor doesn't have the burden of making weight, and he's young, he's fast, and he hits hard. Doesn't box that well, and that's due to the inactivity. If this was the active Conor, Chris would be in a world of trouble. Conor's lost his weight, but Chris is fighting for the dough, like Simon Jordan says. Silly comment really, because all fighters fight for the money, they're prize fighters. But Chris has opted for fights like this over world title fights where he wouldn't be subjected to rehydration clauses or fighting at a weight that he's probably grown out of. But this is what Chris has agreed to. I don't like when the fans and the media do the whole depicting him as a martyr that the evil Eddie Hearn is exploiting. Not many things make me say cringe, but that could be as close as it gets if we're talking boxing. There were people even trying to blame the British Boxing Board of Control for approving the fight at 160. That's not what the board is there for, to tell you what weight to fight at. And you know, these people come out and say these things. And if you challenge them to find precedents when the British Boxing Board of Control have did this before, the British Boxing Board of Control are not there to tell you how to negotiate your fight. They're there to make sure you abide by the rules. If Chris doesn't get him out of there early, Chris is going to sustain damage. Pretty much like the first fight. But the type of money he's getting paid, he did well not to go over from some of them headshots that hit him. This time he might not be so lucky. And while I pick him to win again, the extra time from September till November that he delayed the fight is only delaying the inevitable damage that he's going to sustain in this fight. Because Conor's going to be training like a crazy person. And he's got the youth to be able to do so. Not burdened by making the weight. He came in 156. But I'm going to enjoy the fight. I think because of all the reasons I detailed is why it's going to make it a great fight. Chris is the better fighter, the bigger fighter, but he's putting himself at a disadvantage where Conor could do him serious damage. I've worked out who Chris Eubank Jr. is. He's trying to tell himself and the public that Conor never really did that much damage to him. When you're 35 and you're getting hospitalized for days and your head is swollen up like a football, move up or retire is the logical conclusion. I remember last fight, his dad told him before a punch was thrown about the dangers of this fight. You're fighting someone younger than you, has better recovery time than you, is a naturally hard puncher who doesn't have to worry about the constraints of weight making. You're going to be depleted taking hard punches from this kid who's barely in his prime. His dad told him this. But Chris is this middle class kid who's well spoken, but he doesn't seem to have much common sense. His dad, I believe, has made more world title defenses than any other British fighter in history. And you're just not going to listen. And pushing the fight back to November is not going to help him if this is a war of attrition. Conor ain't no wild puncher, he's a natural puncher. The first left hook he hurt him with was a well-delivered punch. It wasn't some wild swing. And if Conor improves his technique and makes a few more adjustments, this is going to be a bad fight for Chris. Chris has not really got no power at the weight. He couldn't drop Conor. And he was hitting him flush and backing him up and throwing volleys, and he couldn't drop him once. Chris secured the bag last fight, but it looks like he's getting a little greedy. But yo, the fight was a scorcher, and I believe it will be just part of my subscription, no pay-per-view. I'm all in. First fight was an absolute scorcher. Great occasion, great theatre. The dads, DAZN, Eddie, Benn, everyone done a first-class job. What a fight that was. What an event that was. The rest of the card was mediocre, but the main event, yeah.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Jerome Boots Ennis has moved up to 154. Rowley, who outpointed Ryan Garcia, became regular WBA champion as Jerome vacated that strap. Eddie Hearn has SHAKRHAM Giyasov, the interim WBA champion. Eddie believes that Giyasov is being treated unfairly because he wasn't elevated to champion. Well, what does the rule book say? Does regular champion get priority over the interim champion? There's a few areas to attack on this. Yeah, maybe the WBA should make it more concise who they're going to elevate as champion. But surely Giyasov should get some consideration because he was waiting longer for his title shot, even though he did take the step-aside money. Now, I don't know what his priorities are. Does he want to be champion or does he just want the cash? Because if you're not a popular, well-promoted fighter and you give up your title shot for step-aside money, you don't know when you're going to get that title shot. The WBC probably have some small print within their rules on who they're going to elevate from who they're not going to elevate based on their commercial value, who can bring them back the biggest sanctioning fee. That'd be Rowley in this case. And then there's Eddie Hearn saying this guy's been treated unfairly. Has he really though? I mean, he's not a global superstar. Probably got a good step-aside check when he gave up his shot at Stanionis for the full title so Boots could unify. And if Eddie's so desperate about getting him a title shot, well, you shouldn't have let Boots unify. You should have put Giyasov in to go fight Stanionis. And if Boots wants to unify, it will have to be against the winner. But this is what I'm saying. Your sanctioning, ranking your mandatory is only as useful as your market value. Eddie is obviously trying to build Boots Ennis out of his 147-pounders over Giyasov. You can have a ranking, a mandatory, but if you're not being prioritized by your promoter, the network, or maybe even the sanctioning body, or maybe even the media,
you get played out of position.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
no one.
Can do it better.
As much as I don't like the sanctioning bodies, there's no victims here. If you play sanctioning body politics and you're a boxer, you take your step-aside money, and then next thing you know, they're elevating people above you because you're not that popular. It is what it is. No sympathy here. Nobody knows Giyasov. Nobody cares if he gets the title shot. I've probably pronounced his name wrong. I've seen him fight a couple of times. Rowley is not going to fight Giyasov unless he's forced to do so by the WBA. Just like they're not going to force Usyk to fight Pulev, who's also a regular champion. What do you think Rowley's going to do? Say, yeah, I'm a good sport. I have to oblige my mandatory contender. Not unless he's forced to. He's not going to do that. That's not how the PBC play. Now, this isn't the same as Joseph Parker's situation, yeah? Joseph Parker has a considerable amount of people around the globe who want him to get a title shot. This ain't the same. At least Joseph Parker is getting his case heard because he has more notoriety. But it just shows you about the levels. Regardless of your mandatory status, there's levels of mandatory status. There's levels of regular. There's levels of interim champion. There's levels. Even full champion, there's levels. There's stuff that some full champions may get away with that others can't. Looks like Joseph Parker's getting frozen out. But Joseph Parker is a Riyadh season player. He's a multi-million purse fighter. And he's earned that. He has a better resume than Giyasov. But nevertheless, they're both mandatory contenders. It's got to be one size fits all. Your outrage has to be equal for Giyasov as it is for Joseph Parker, is my argument. And that goes for the media. They need to tell the casuals and hardcores, whoever don't understand, who should be champion in this situation, the interim guy, the regular guy. And they should be explaining it doesn't matter if you're well connected, well promoted, or you have a high profile. You shouldn't be overlooked if you've done everything required. And the WBA, they were supposed to get rid of a lot of them belts a long time ago. And that's the reason we have this issue, because of the proliferation of belts.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.